She's trying to make it work, balancing the checkbook of this great city. You know, I saw Sarah Innamorato on television earlier tonight, Rachel, and I've been kind of coming to her defense. Look, she could have very easily ducked away from this story and just kind of left it for the next administration or when it became crunch time. And I give you credit, too, because you're saying, look, the COVID money that we got, it's running out. I alluded to the audience a little while ago. I was looking at a picture of downtown Pittsburgh from the fabulous 50s when everything was hustling and bustling and how your job was a whole lot easier then because there was money. So before we do anything else, how in the world have you been able to make this work?
The thing that I've prioritized is just being honest with people about the future of city finances and letting folks know that 2025 and 2026 are going to be very lean years for the city. We have a few things happening at once, including the end of that COVID relief money. We have 2 big bond payments that are due, and we have a contraction of our downtown real estate tax base, which is 25% of all of our city real estate tax revenue comes from downtown. And that's 25% of our revenue portfolio. So 25% of 25% is contracting rapidly. The example I've most recently been using is the BNY Mellon Tower filed a reassessment, I think in early October. And that cost the city a one-time hit of $750,000. And the aggregate impact of that is hurting the city's, revenue. So that's what I've prioritized, is just making sure that people know that we are in for some really lean years, and we need to do everything we can to grow the city. You referenced the 1950s. That was, of course, well before my time. But that's when my grandparents moved to Pittsburgh. My mom was born in Bradford, and my grandparents moved to Pittsburgh in 1958. And Pittsburgh was attracting new people. And that's actually what was helping buoy the city. We had an influx of immigrants. We had an influx of people moving to Pittsburgh because of the jobs and of the economy. And that's really what we need to focus on. And I think not enough of the conversation is focused on growth. And we have to be responsible because of where we are in this very moment. But it's also important that we look forward. And we have tens of thousands, I think the number might be close to 100,000 college students who come to Pittsburgh every year to attend one of our 6 universities in the city. That doesn't include La Roche and Washington and Jefferson and Geneva College. It's the cities that are the universities that are actually in the city. How do we keep them here? How do we keep some of those students here? I'm one of them. I didn't grow up in Western Pennsylvania. I'm a Pittsburgher by choice. And the ads that you've had about Cumberland Valley High School and the football state championship all day have been heartwarming. I actually attended Cumberland Valley. That's where I graduated from 21 years ago. So I've enjoyed that as I've been listening this evening. But I stayed, and I think that we have a ton to offer. And, we do have affordability. Yes, there's a housing issue, and we need to make sure that we're focused on growth in housing, and we're allowing developers to work with community groups to build housing. But I think that that's the other side of this coin that there isn't enough conversation around, is how do we get people to stay, and how do we grow our city, and how do we grow the region? In 2020 was the last time there was a census, of course, and Allegheny County grew for the first time since 1970. So we are headed in the right direction. We just have to make sure that we're attracting people to the city in particular. And then we're getting folks to stay and invest and to work here, start businesses here, raise a family here. So that's what I've kind of been focused on, half on growth and half on being honest with people about where we are.
Listen, what I love about Pittsburgh is everything, and I'm not the only one. I can't tell you how many people that have crossed my path in recent years that are living in the Strip, that are living in the Heinz Cork Factory, living in Washington Landing, living up on Mount Washington, and they absolutely love it. And most of them are like your age, if not a little older and even younger. So we have something that's very attractive. Yeah. And if we wanted to get better and brighter and have all the bells and whistles, we have to figure a way to bring new business here. And that's why I've been harping on this U.S. Steel, Nippon Steel deal, to the point where I've even asked that former president who's going to be president again, just let the powers to be figure it out. We're not talking directly about the city, but you're talking about $1 billion coming to the Mon Valley. Look, You're educated. You understand dollars that make sense. No matter what you think of this deal, if it's $1 billion coming to this region and it's going to make that Mon Valley Works actually up to speed for the next 100 years and all of the ancillary jobs and the building trade jobs, I mean, it's got to be something we got to consider, Rachel.
I'm pro labor. Whatever we can do to keep those jobs in the region, I think should be the priority. And it is a massive investment. Obviously, I'm the city controller, so I don't know enough about the ancillary impact on those communities, as it relates to the Mon Valley. But I whatever we can do to make sure that people are still working and that they still have jobs, I think should be the top priority.
So I got to tell you a little story. The CEO of Coons Market, Jody Zima, good friend, kind of a family member, if you will. Her dad and I, lifelong friends. I think about him every day. And having you on, the first thing he would say, if you get an accounting degree, you'll always work. So whatever you're going to do the rest of your life, you're always going to find work. But I hope you stay in public office because you are making a difference. But Jody and I talk about all the stores, and one of the stores that I really loved was one of Joe's favorites, Highwood Street on the north side. And I love the north side, Manchester, Brighton Heights. We want people to have all the opportunities that are necessary, and we want to be able to sell them groceries, a win-win for everyone. I just want to see legacy companies like Coons Market, the north side, the city of Pittsburgh, not only survive, but I want us to thrive. What do you think has to happen sooner than later to really make a big splash that can make your job a whole lot easier? And not only are we going to bring people here, but the people who are already here, who've been lifelong residents, are going to be able to continue to stay here. What has to happen?
I think there are a lot of things that are little and it all adds up. I mean, I look at the Bloomfield development at the old grocery store, and it was the community wanted that development, right? They wanted that housing. And I think we as a city didn't do enough to work with that developer to have them continue forward with the project, and they pulled the plug and it's gone. So I think we need to do everything we can to work as a government, work with private developers who do want to come here and build. I think it's important that community engagement conversation occur, and that there is, people. I live on the north side actually, so it's important. And I actually share a property line with the senior building, and they are the best neighbors. And I wonder in some of these neighborhoods, what would happen if that development was proposed today? Would they be welcomed, or would they be, is it like, well, we don't want that here? And I think we have to change our mindset that we want new neighbors. And I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing we can do, is to have a pro new neighbor mentality, because Pittsburgh is a bunch of neighborhoods combined to make a city. My dad describes it as a small town that got big, and it is. I mean, I think about how the Central North Side is not the same as Allegheny West, and Allegheny West is not the same as Manchester, and East Deutschtown and Deutschtown are two distinctly different neighborhoods. And it's that character that makes us Pittsburgh, but we have to make sure that we're going at this arm in arm, because the only thing that will create a Pittsburgh that people in future generations want to live in is to have that pro neighbor and pro new neighbor, especially, mindset. And so I think if we look at things in that sort of scope, that will be the best thing that we can do as a city and as a region to, move the needle forward, and attracting new residents, attracting new immigrants, whether they're, transplants from Miami, transplants from Dallas, or transplants from Central and South America. I think we need to do everything that we can to make this an attractive place to live and work.
And I got to tell you, if that would have been a Coons Market, we would have got that deal done in Bloomfield, okay? No, because they love Joe Dentisi in Bloomfield. He loved Bloomfield. I love Bloomfield. And any growth anywhere, anytime, any place that will bring new people in, I'm all for it. And, I've often said we're all immigrants. And
right.
Sadly, it gets a bad rap because of the border and all the things that we talk about. But those who come here just want what our grandparents and great-grandparents wanted, and your mom and dad, and why they ended up in Pittsburgh, they want an opportunity. And if we give them opportunity, they're going to work, right?
For sure. And the one thing I'll flag about immigration, I think close to 80 to 85% of the people who are here illegally came legally. So most people who are deemed undocumented or unlawful residents in terms of their immigration status actually came here legally, and they overstayed their visa or their welcome, however you want to say it. So anything that we can do to attract and retain people who want to come to America, it seems so short-sighted to me. And I think when you look at our economic issues that we're facing as a society, not necessarily as a region, although they're very similar, immigration is the one thing that will not fully fix, but it significantly address every single major economic, financial, and fiscal issue that the city and the region and the country are facing.
Absolutely.
What's so ironic is, and I forget when the timing of all of this, but the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is generally considered to be quite conservative
Right.
in their political positions, is very, very, very pro immigration and pro immigration reform and get people here because they need, and they recognize the need that we need people here. We need to grow our economy. And that's how you do, that's one way to do it.
Well, I got to get one more segment out of you because you really lit the fire, and I'm stoking it when we come back on why this whole immigration thing is being looked at in a different direction, the wrong direction. Rachael Heisler, the exceptional Pittsburgh City Controller, my guest. And if you want to see this interview stream live, go to kdkradio.com and click on KDK Watch. We'll be back with more of your Pratt Pack tonight on KDK Radio. Stay with us. Help wanted signs from the local convenience store to the fast food restaurant to the manufacturing site to agriculture, you name it, retail. One thing about these people that come to this country, they want to work and they're willing to work. And if it wasn't for many of those immigrants who've done it the right way and have come here, imagine how many jobs would be unfilled, and imagine what that would do to a budget like the city of Pittsburgh. Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a snowball effect, right? And what it does for economic growth. I think it also, and you and I have talked about this before, Rob, but it is also this really enriching, benefit to the city culturally. I mean, you think about how Beachview has changed and with the Hispanic community that's developed there, and you look at all the different restaurants and their cultural traditions that they bring with them. And it's just, I mean, I think about it. I'm a Heinz 57 when you look at my ethnicity, but I think about the traditions that my grandparents, who are all first generation Americans, brought with them and started with my family. My grandfather was Dutch, so we did St. Nicholas night. I've had, I polka at family weddings because both my grandmother's parents were born in Poland. And I think that those things are really enriching for a community, and everything that we can do to incentivize and spur that interest in resettlement in Western Pennsylvania, I think we ought to do. People are moving, non-Native Americans are moving to Seattle and Portland and Phoenix and Dallas and Austin in droves. And how can we attract those new residents? And economic growth begets economic growth too. So on the other side of it, it is just point blank good for the economy. And it's good for the city's economy. It's good for our neighborhood economies, and it's good for the regional economy. So I think reframing this entire immigration, calling it a debate is a little generous, but this conversation that we should be having as a country around the benefits, I think would really benefit our region and our city.
All right, last thing for a city controller from Pittsburgh, Rachael Heisler. The halls that you walk every day have a lot of history. And when you think back of some of the people that made, at that time, Grand Street, Wall Street, you have a big responsibility. But if you don't get this right, and as you said, the next couple of years are going to be troublesome as far as the money is concerned, it could really send Pittsburgh spiraling into the abyss. So you guys have to get it right, Rachel?
Yeah, and I think what's really important is our office certified revenue for next year and the subsequent 4 years. So City Council earlier this year voted to change our responsibility with revenue certification to a 5-year window instead of an annual it happens annually, but instead of just on the 1 year future basis. And I think the other side of that coin is there's two sides of a budget. One is revenue, which we certify, but the other are the expenditures. And I think making sure that those expenditure line items are in alignment with where we are this year and reflect the essential functions, and that we're deprioritizing things that maybe we can wait until 2028. Police overtime is going to exceed $20 million this year. I'll use that as an example, but it's budgeted right now for $15 million next year. I don't foresee a circumstance where we will spend less on police overtime next year than we're going to spend this year. And that $15 million it's currently budgeted. City Council has a role in this too, would be the lowest it's been in, I think, 6 or 7 years. So I think making sure that those expenditures, particularly with essential line items like police overtime, like fire overtime, like DPW overtime and EMS overtime, making sure that we're being honest there. And so we aren't moving the chips around for essential services instead of saying, oh, you know what, it's October and we're going to have a surplus on X, Y, and Z. Let's repurpose those funds.
Listen, great job tonight. You're always so candid, and that's what I admire about you. And we'll do it again. And remember, the phone works two ways. If I can ever help you, please reach out, okay?
Thanks so much, Rob. It was great to be with you. Have a great evening.